Everybody, my name is Ella Van Weel. I'm a sophomore MCB major, and this is my case study on typhoid fever, specifically the Colorado 2015 outbreak. You may have heard of typhoid fever previously, it's pretty infamous, but it's caused by a rare and dangerous strain of salmonella. And this is the scientific name, but it's usually just called Salmonella typhi. This is a picture of the bacteria, what the bacteria look like. And it's pretty rare in the United States, but there are reported 200,000 deaths annually from typhoid fever and roughly 5,700 cases found in the US, largely from people who have recently traveled abroad and may have come into contact with infected people. Humans are the only host for Salmonella typhi, and the infection is typically spread as infected feces come into contact with food or water. So, the outbreak on September 11th, 2015, a local in Colorado tested positive for typhoid fever, although the case was dismissed as travel related because they had recently returned from a trip. But a second patient later also tested positive who had not been traveling, and so the CDPHE, which is the local health government, quickly implemented some testing to determine if there was an outbreak occurring or not. So their goal in their testing was to determine common exposure sources, signs of a larger outbreak, and to eliminate transmissions. Their symptoms included fever, headache, constipation, chills, myalgia, and malaise, and the patients showed their symptoms around 18 days apart. They found that there was no link of relationships between the patients, and they also lived roughly 6 miles apart, but through their intense surveying, uh, they were found to have shared 6 restaurant locations, and they also shopped for produce recently at the same location. Then, on October 15th, a third patient was found to have typhoid fever who showed symptoms about the same time as the other patients. And through more surveying, it was revealed that all 3 patients had eaten at a fresh produce Mexican restaurant. So that meant that they just used they used a lot of fresh produce in their meals. So the restaurant was under investigation and they found that there was no signs of poor hand washing protocol and all the workers were clear of symptoms and it was uh, clear that there must be a carrier, so someone who showed no symptoms but was capable of passing the pathogen. So in order to find the carrier, they had to take samples of all the workers from the rectum and using pure tech culturing techniques, they were able to separate and identify the Salmonella typhi out of the millions of bacteria that were present in the human microbiome. And through this process, they found a server who tested positive for having Salmonella typhi in his sample, and he had traveled 15 years previously to a country where typhoid was present. He had not been ill at the time and had not come into contact with ill people, but he was removed from working for about 3 months actually. So he was treated for a month with azithromycin, and then his stool samples were tested every month for 3 months, and they had to come back negative every time before he was allowed to return to work. And they did say that all the workers got paid time off if they had to leave for testing, and he got his job held so he could come back to it. So, in conclusion, it's very important to note that fresh produce can spread bacteria because it does not undergo the heat of cooking that would kill the bacteria. And so it's just important to really wash your produce when you buy it and also consider where you're eating, and if there's any risks associated with that. With that being said, food safety and handling, especially if you work in the restaurant field or um, are serving people food, that's very important to address and, make sure we're upholding those standards so that we can avoid any outbreaks of disease. And then additionally, this story kind of relates back to what we've been learning in class about peer culture technique, which is a very important um, achievement in science that gives healthcare workers the ability to determine if there's any pathogens out of the millions of bacteria that are found all over and within us. So, um, yeah, I hope you found my presentation enjoyable.